Ms. Gray is not coming. Is Ms. Gray coming?
We did not hear from her.
She did not. Okay, she's really busy running for mayor. I seen it on TV. Anyway, well, we go ahead and we're all here and you can go ahead and get started. Oh, you have your packet already?
Yeah.
Get you one. You got you?
Yeah, there is there more?
No, I was
It's
just
the
saying
Jane from one.
No, it's the same.
Yeah.
I can get a hard copy too, sir.
You got it?
Okay.
It made it. Good. Just make sure you had that. And go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you, Martha. Will you dispense with item A, read statement regarding virtual meetings, as we're all here, and move toward roll call. If there's a roll call, so we can determine attendance. Here. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, we're just
How many?
missing
1,
Ms.
2,
Gray
3.
and
Just Ms. Gray.
and
So
Mr.
we're,
Blackwood.
okay,
So
as
we're-
noted, as noted in the minutes from last time as well. Thank you, great. All right, in regards to item C, August minutes, excuse me, page 3, the minutes, are there any additions, corrections? And it's always important to look through them briefly. Let's take a moment to look through them briefly in case anyone has a correction regarding, their statements. I see none.
The reason I had so many problems last time, I was in a big boardroom in the county. I had a meeting at 1 and one at 3, and it was stacked up, and so I didn't know how to use the equipment, okay? But that's why I'm here.
Well, hearing none, have a motion to approve the minutes.
Will we approve the minutes?
Been moved and second, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have, the minutes are approved and adopted. Now let's move to the item 2, August 20th, financial statements. Terry.
Okay, just briefly, a quick update on the audit. We are
Thank you.
at the end of the field work on the audit. We have not done the VRS testing yet. We will have Mr. Rhodes at the October 27th audit committee meeting to present the draft.
Okay, thank you.
So these statements are still unadjusted for fiscal year 20. On page 5, on the balance sheet and the statement of net position, we see that we have a very strong cash position. Let's see. All the audit adjustments have been made thus far. Moving on to page 6 of the balance sheet and statement of net position, we see a August year-to-date net loss for $29,682 cumulative. We have collected all special assessments in full, and the unrestricted reserve balance is $1,111,229 at August 31st.
Which is a decline of $20,000, correct, from last month. Is that correct? Last month,
That is correct, because
decline of $20,000.
Right.
Okay,
that is correct.
and that's principally contributed by, I see increase. What would you say is principally contributing to the decline of $20,000 from last month?
Probably more staff time is being used for leave purposes, or the time is not really being charged to the more chargeable programs. And we'll go into that later when we look at the graphs
Okay,
and discuss the delta on the reimbursable positions.
okay, very good. And one quick question before we get to that. There's a correct and overbills that corrected and correct in the last month we had an overbill, remember?
It is not,
How much was that again? What's the amount? I don't recall. I heard about it here.
it had to do with,
Is the jive billing?
right, and some of that came over from the prior year, from June. But it looks like, I guess, Martha, if you want to kind of speak to the way the lines are supposed to be routed together. And
They
the
essentially double
special-
billed us. They billed us twice for every line. So
Okay,
we're working with them Pardon?
They double billed, but did we double pay?
We did. I think we double paid
It
one
had to
month.
do with the way the lines had to be mapped together, right?
Well, they billed us for all of the units and they billed us for all of the lines and those are supposed to be
Okay.
married together.
Okay.
So we're disputing the payment that we made to them to say that they should not have billed us double and we should not have paid double.
Okay.
Do we not have any method of checking these things before we make payment on bills?
We are working through that as we speak. I think just the remote situation, I did not notice that this one went through with the double amount, so.
Oh, that doesn't, not happen again. We have check mark or tick mark noting this should be double checked.
Well, the problem with the mapping of the lines were corrected, right, Martha?
Right, I mean,
Right, so,
yeah, we've gone into the system and assigned the units to the user, so now they're, yeah. But I think Mr. Holland's asking more about reviewing invoices
Yeah, in terms
themselves.
of recurrent review.
I'm now reviewing.
Ongoing, that we won't have that happen
Terry's,
again.
right, Terry's now sending me the invoices prior to being paid so that I
Good.
can look at them as opposed to before we had a little bit of a different system. So we've updated that as part of our remote work internal controls.
Okay, that's great.
So we haven't addressed that.
Yeah. How much was that, by the way? What was the total dollar amount, Terry? Do you remember from last month? Because that may come up again in our regular meeting. As
I
it was
mean,
asked in the
what I
last
will
meeting.
do is I will go back and I'll look at it and I'll tell you exactly which month
Mhm.
it pertains to, because it may be actually a bulk of it in June.
June, okay.
But I will look that up.
Yeah, please do, and have that ready for us in the regular meeting. All right, then you can
So
get to,
how we gonna remedy it? How is this gonna be remedied?
You said that.
We've done, three things. Systemically, we're reviewing our invoices differently. So that's to prevent it from happening in the future. Specific to the double billing that occurred, we've paired the desk units, the phones, and the line together. So even though people aren't here in the office, we've connected them. They were sitting in boxes unpacked for a couple of months. So when the bills were coming through, however many Terry will research this and find out, but when they were coming through, they were billing us for each desk unit and the line because they weren't paired together. So we've paired them now. So as Terry mentioned, in the system, it went from, I think it was like 46 or something, down to 23, which is the right number that we should be billed for. We were being billed for 46. But in addition to that, I think we've put in, if I'm not mistaken, a charge dispute with LogMeIn to be able to resolve the overpayment. Am I right about that?
Have you done that, Diane?
What's that? Sorry.
There's a charge dispute with the LogMeIn Jive.
Yes, I have contacted them about that. I'm just waiting for them to get back with a confirmation that they're going to reverse that.
okay. Okay,
Okay, but we've added another level of review in all payments going out.
okay,
That's good.
all right.
Is that question, got a good chance of coming up?
Absolutely.
A larger meeting too, so.
Yeah.
Excellent point, excellent. All right, Terry, you were saying you were about to get to,
Okay, so on page 7,
Before you go any further, Terry, I'm gonna ask you a question, because my page 7 and 8, and page 9 and 10 look like they're both the same report, but they're different.
well, there's an extra column on the 910.
Yeah, but which one is the right one we're looking at?
Well, we're gonna
Profit
first
loss
look
statement.
at 7, 8.
There's
The
just
first one on pages 7 and 8 is just the
Just the
month.
month.
line on
It's a period of the month. I think the more helpful of the two statements from my perspective is the year to date
Okay.
that includes July and
okay.
August, but it really is your preference of, she gives you just the month look. and then
Oh, okay, that's
cumulative.
Do
what it
you-
is, it's just, the first two
It's the new
pages
year.
just part of
Right,
the
yes,
second
right.
page. Second page.
But if you don't really require the monthly shot because it's on your year-to-date shot and there's more comparative information, I mean, we could just provide the report and not discuss it and discuss the year-to-date one, if that's easier.
Well, I think it, first, Mr. Chairman, I think it's easier to review this with year-to-date one, seeing the previous than I do just the 1 month.
Yeah, I
The
agree.
monthly by itself.
I agree.
uh,
Mhm. Yeah,
Little
your
flash
pleasure.
doesn't tell me as much, so,
Yeah, your pleasure. I agree.
so
I see what you're
I
saying.
guess
Mhm.
if somebody wants to,
I'm in
I'm in
agreement.
favor of going on to page 9, working from home.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine with me. Are there any questions on any individual items on the, before we go there? Any
Well, I think
questions?
they're all on. page
It's all in
9.
nine
here.
and 10.
Right, so on, it
All
carries over to 9 and 10.
9 and 10, okay, let's go there.
Same
That will help.
So on page 9, I have added the yellow highlighted sections, which point out just items with variances and the explanations, provided for those variances. On page 9, on item A, for the CBRAC WIP 3 federal share program, again, that project is coming to an end on December 31st. So it doesn't stretch out for the entire year. So the 25% variance test doesn't really meet this program because it's a short year program.
Okay,
It's on the, it's gonna end December.
okay. And I see, yeah, 25, plus or minus 25%. Gotcha.
Right.
Go ahead.
Because it's quarter 1.
Gotcha.
Item B is for the analysis of impediments. And this project is moving ahead. And it's going to go through March of 31st. We project the latest. So there is a budget amendment that will be forthcoming to put an adequate budget in there. And of course, there will be a budget put in the opposite project expense line, which you'll see all the way on page 10 as item F, which corresponds to the revenue side.
Mhm.
If I could, it's probably, I guess this is you, Martha, what are we analyzing, analysis of impediments? What
The
is
full
that project?
title is so long, it doesn't fit there, but it's Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing Choice. It's a federally funded project that's supporting 6 jurisdictions in the Richmond and Tri-Cities region. We've hired a consultant to do the work on behalf of the 6 localities, and we have a minor administrative fee that we collect, but it's for, interestingly enough, it was a project started last fall. Actually, I think we signed the agreement in November, and it was in response to the requirements that the localities have for their CDBG and home funds. The requirement to perform an analysis of impediments has actually this fall since been repealed. But the localities had already gone forward and initiated the project. So we're finishing it. Like Terry said, it's been extended into this fiscal year due to COVID, but that's what it's for. It
was
used
just
to be a
line item.
requirement.
I couldn't make any rhyme
Yeah.
or reason or what sense.
Sorry, yeah, it's just a long title for the project.
On page 9, as we go down to item C, the VRS rate has increased.
Okay.
So that's why that variance is so high.
From what to what?
Diane, do you know? From the employer contribution side?
Not right offhand, I don't remember what the increase was.
Based on
We can get
what we're
that for you,
paying now,
though.
it looks like a 20% increase. Does that sound
It's
even-
not a 20%. It's just the way that we've budgeted it.
Well, I'm just saying, if we're looking at
From
10.7 each month, that's, that comes up to 120-some thousand versus the 101 we anticipated.
Correct.
That's,
Gotcha.
Yeah,
did VRS actually go up that much?
yeah, that's why I'm asking what the deviation was, rate wise.
They actually provide us a letter, and
Okay.
that rate is good for 2 years.
Okay,
And it's set by the General Assembly.
correct.
So
Yeah,
the-
but,
the new
but-
rate is good.
yeah, but we're going to what the prior rate was to compare it.
I can get that for you.
Thank you.
And bring it back
Caveat
to you.
for us for the meet. Good. Thank you.
That big-
Rate analysis. 120 versus, 100, that's $20,000 deviation. Right there.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, states you know this stuff actually so easily. but,
Yeah, what they're gonna have to do is,
Yeah.
there was an article that was written that the earnings have dropped, which means they have to increase the rates. Unfortunately, that's the downside of the economy, down the economy. the rates will increase. But hopefully the goal will be to level it out so it's not a shock, you know? Call it rate stabilization. What we might want to do, the General Assembly should look at rate stabilization so as to not give us shocks. We do that with utilities, so that we don't have huge increases in drop in utility costs. That's something we want to look at as a proposal.
On page 10, under item B, as we had discussed, we are still working on that phone charge dispute with the LogMe and Jive. Item E, under the supplies, we have incurred costs to maintain the office in a safe environment due to COVID-19 for our staff members so that they can return to the office. And we've also applied for a grant with Versa, our insurance carrier. And we've submitted those receipts for reimbursement just for the PPE specifically.
So I'm assuming that's, even though it's highlighted, it's really not out of line, because I would not see this as a continuing expense.
Correct. That's right.
So it's gonna be falling back in line. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, for technology services and computers, does everyone have I guess, everyone that's working remotely, does everyone have a laptop? Or?
No. Some staff members are working on their personal computer at home and they're logging into our virtual network. And we did today get notice that one of our staff members who has a laptop, it has, according to her, died. I mean, so we're working on what that replacement strategy will be. So I think we're up to about 15 agency issued laptop users. And the remaining are our interns are working on their personal computer. That was our policy even before remote work. And then I think Terry is working on her own computer, as is Diane, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me just,
So,
Well, she had one, but it died.
Did PlanRVA get any of the CARES money?
No, we're not eligible.
We're not eligible.
Yeah, and we've applied for a couple of the technology grants, but because of the type of organization we're not eligible for that as well. So we're looking at sort of triaging the remaining laptop users that are functioning, not the way that we'd like them to be, so that we can hopefully fill that gap this fiscal year.
do you use desktops, laptops?
We were in a mix. We were prior to March, or April, I guess I should say, the majority of the staff members were using desktop computers. And actually last year, we were able to get approval through the TPO to buy, I think it was 10 new laptops to be able to transition those staff to the remote situation. Several of those staff members, because of the software that they run, Sulab as an example, has to have both. So he comes to the office and uses a desktop when he needs to run the modeling software. And then at home, while he's remote work, he's using his laptop. It's the remainder of the staff members that are using either desktop still. And so when they've gone home, their preference was to use their personal computer. We did offer that staff could take their desktop home with them. So that is an option for folks that they could do that. It's just a matter of hauling the equipment home, which isn't preferable for some people. And then the rest of the staff are using, I think the one that failed today, or as of today, is 4 years old, I think the email said.
So do we have a rotation of computers, i.e.?
Computer inventory management has been a challenge for this agency. So we've been trying to get into a groove where we're replacing a third of the computers each year, sort of trying to function on a 3-year life cycle.
That's
So with laptops, it's easier to go, it's harder to go longer. So we were trying to move to desktop so that we could spread the purchasing out, and we had really, frankly, just adopted, I think in January or February, that we were gonna say, we're just gonna do desktops. And then COVID happened and we had to switch our plan to the laptop situation.
I don't know, I just feel
That's a great question.
comfortable.
Yeah.
just one.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable doing work on work
work computers, yeah,
Versus
I'm
using
kind
your
of a
personal.
little concerned there.
Not,
Well,
not that I'm saying you wouldn't, I
Right.
mean, this is not offending
Right.
anybody. I just think that work should be
Right.
kept separate from personal.
So my only thing is I don't have a way to take my desktop and plug it in at home. I have a modem for my household, so I don't have the one that you plug
Mhm.
in the wall. But I guess there's like some sort of adapter, right, that you can purchase.
I mean,
or-
you could take, you could, yeah, I mean, we could outfit anybody with a wireless connection with their desktop, and that's certainly an option. It's just been an election
Yeah.
that some of the staff members have, like Terry said, chosen not to bring their desktop. to
I just
the
think we
home.
need to look at that,
Do
because
we have any staff members who are suffering from poor broadband access?
We've
No, they
done
don't
a
live in
couple
New
of speed tests. I would say we are fortunate, the majority of our staff members do live in well-served areas. I mean, just anecdotally, I live in the city, and I noticed that since school has started, my service is lower than, I mean, everybody's suffering that.
Mhm.
yeah. that's
And I
the
think
other part.
depending on what's going on in everyone's household, it's also but we are fortunate, if everybody looks at their bill,
Mhm.
they're reported as having, adequate broadband, and we have worked with a couple of staff members to purchase boosters or things like that so that they can, continue to function on calls. Everybody's been able to do video and voice. It's probably been the same experience you all. We don't have Mrs. Page's problem, I know.
So everybody's
It's pretty
gonna have the
dire.
same problem I have when I go to work in the morning, that everything has slowed down since school started.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely.
I got and I had my modem checked. I found out, of course, how many megabytes per second it goes. I've been paying for turbo service, and I
Not
cannot
getting it.
have it. My modem won't allow me that.
Oh, interesting.
So my bill is gonna get reduced by about $25 a month.
That's good.
So,
matters.
well, I mean, it's working well. I mean, I've used it for, well, I've been working with my computer and modems and all that for 20-some years, 30 years, actually, more like 40. But the desktop, I just switched everything to a laptop, and I have what do you call it, a Chromebook and stuff like that.
It's working well.
I didn't want the county to provide it to me, because I need to put what I need on it. But point there is, are you paying for more of the service than you can use? That's the other thing.
We're still continuing to pay for internet service here.
I mean, how fast is it, and how fast can you get it?
I don't know the up and the down. I mean, we've had it upgraded to, I think, whatever the max is available here.
Okay.
That supports our wireless network as well as the,
I only asked that because I was shocked that they just upped, what I was paying for the service, of course.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't get anything I could use. My equipment only can handle so
Right.
much. So
that's an interesting thing. I think
Point
we'll
that
check
out.
and make sure that the
It's a good
equipment
idea.
can support the bandwidth.
they have a speed, you can go in and click on a speed check.
Mhm.
And I was surprised that it was so slow because I'm doing fine. I mean, just my husband and I, though, just the two of us. But I went to customer service and said, look, I've got this modem and it can only do so many megabits per second, yet you're charging me for this. And they said, oh, well, then we can reduce your speed, the speed that, I said, yeah, and it's not gonna make any difference because my computer can only work so fast.
Mhm.
And if, I'm just saying that I've been paying about,
Yeah.
personally, at least $25 more a month than I can handle with the equipment I have.
Mark Bittner
That's
that
all.
you saw here leads our IT stuff, so I'll mention that to him and ask him if he can double
And it's
check.
not, he could probably, in 10, 15 minutes, he could tell you that you are
You're
or,
right, those are paying for
Well,
services
that's
you
all.
use.
Yeah.
I just didn't think about it, but they keep adding on and keep
Yeah.
going, but the bill goes up and up,
Yeah,
and I
that's
said,
typical.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I gotta find
Upgraded.
something,
That's typical. You're right.
That's all,
Yeah.
just, I
If
didn't
you're a
realize.
If you're a gamer, that might be more valuable to you.
Yeah. Oh,
Whatever.
and Terry, one thing,
Okay.
on the fixed assets, 1,300 line item balance sheet,
Right,
provide us in the future a detailed listing of the assets. Do they have asset numbers? And specifically, with focus on computers, laptops, computers. If you have $51,000 of your P&E, property, plant, and equipment, give us a listing of those assets and if they have asset numbers, let us know about that. Want to verify that, specifically with respect to computers, to look at, computers, how many we have, that sort of thing. Can you do that in the future?
I can,
Thank you.
Where was that line?
That's on the balance sheet, page 5.
under fixed assets.
Fixed asset 1,300, $351,000.
Oh, okay, there.
This is one area you want to keep a big focus on, because if they are assets we can't locate, we do an inventory, we want to maybe take them off the books.
Right.
We can't locate them. Thanks, Terry. All right, move right along,
Now, we do have a new fixed asset.
which is,
It's line item F under the capital expense on page 8.
okay,
That was for a remodel in our break room.
It's also on page 10.
yeah, I'm looking at 10,
Oh,
and you said item H?
G.
G.
Oh, G, okay, I see G. G on 10, I'm with you. So that was $5,000.
So it's only partially complete too at this point. So,
It's done. The project is complete.
okay, but we had budgeted 20,000 and we got so,
We have availability for other items if needed.
Originally, we contemplated, in addition to the installation of the dishwasher in the kitchen, we contemplated punching some additional holes in some of our larger offices and putting divider walls in so that we could separate workspaces for people that are in shared offices. In talking further consultation with HVAC professionals, they advised that that could actually, to solve one problem, create another with airflow and circulation. And so we elected not to move forward with that expense, especially given where we are in the lease period. So we've separated everybody. We've relocated people so that they're only in a single office with the exception of 4 people. 2 of those are sharing offices, but on a staggered schedule. They're
Yeah, same
grad
with
students,
COVID.
they're not in there at the same time if they do come into the office. And the other 2 are also, they've elected that they would rather take advantage of the shared space, but they will stagger their schedules when they're here in the office and do remote work later. So we had budgeted the 20,000 thinking we might need to make some other improvements, but we've held off on those additional structural things.
16,000 that could be redirected towards some of these other issues.
Computers or that kind of thing. Yeah, I think when we have the budget amendments that Terry's been talking about at your next meeting, we could look at where we could move money within line items if you'd be interested in entertaining that. I know Terry has a request that she wants to talk to you about today as well.
So we talked about moving out of the building and we spent $6,000 in a break room and nobody's here
We installed a dishwasher.
for $6,000?
That was the purchase and the installation and the plumbing, with the expectation that when we do come back, we need to have that higher level of sanitization. Right now, since we've been in the office, we've been hand washing all of the dishes and everything.
When is their rental
Yeah, the lease
agreement
agreement.
up? Is it up?
October 2022.
22.
Mhm.
Okay, that was 23. Okay.
I felt that was a worthwhile expense, given the fact that we do expect to be back in the office for better than a year before we might relocate.
That was 23. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, on the back side, well, for the month of August, we had a $20,050 loss,
That's right.
okay?
Mhm.
I did make some notes on the bottom of page 10.
Okay.
The salaries and wages, they're in line with the budget year to date. The program expenses are about 15% below expected due to some of the program deadlines for COVID. In particular in our environmental programs, work has been extended and work has been delayed. But overall, our computer operations and office expenses are within -1%. There's a positive variance for that section compared to budget. On the flip side,
Well, before
sorry.
you leave that, so our income dropped by 5.6 or 5.6%. Our expenses dropped by 14.8%. Given that, we should be ahead of the curve relative to the net operating income.
You would think so,
That's
but
right.
when you look at the reimbursement of our positions,
Salary reimbursements.
yes.
And why is that 55% of Delta?
Because we may be charging more to administrative programs
Mm-hmm.
due to COVID.
Then rebuild programs?
And there's some staff members that have been taking some time off,
Okay.
which that is non-reimbursable,
Right.
correct?
So didn't we just look at, carrying people's time off because they couldn't take the time? And now we're over because they took the time?
So we had people that had trips scheduled in March and April and May. I know 2 of our staff members had international trips scheduled that were canceled. One of those staff members took a week in the new fiscal year. And then other staff members did take time in July and August that might have normally been taken in May or June. You did at the last board meeting extend the deadlines, but there is not an urgency to use any at-risk annual leave by December 31st. That was extended to the end of the fiscal year. I think most staff members already had their vacation trips, their time off, whatever it might have been, on the schedule. So
But we look at these people who did not take their stuff back in the spring. Did we show a increase in revenue because they didn't? go
June was for
in,
sure.
Last year's?
yeah, June was for
Yeah.
sure a better month than it normally is, because that's when we start to see summer leave happening. So we did see, and we had virtually no leave taken, vacation leave, I'll say, in April, May, and June. So those months were better, I'll say, from a performance standpoint than we would normally expect.
So we were able to build the time that they didn't take in the spring.
Yeah, I would say that,
So
I
wouldn't
mean,
that have carried over into this fiscal year somehow?
say again.
Wouldn't that additional revenue have carried over into this fiscal year somehow?
I'll ask Terry to send out to you, but if we have this chart for the months prior to July,
That's the first thing I was
you know, you would be able to see that we were billing at a 70 to 80% reimbursement rate in those latter parts of the last fiscal year. That leave, if it had been more kind of smoothly taken, evened out over the months, you would have seen probably more like a high 60% billing, which is where we think we want to be. But, you know, we're at 50, what does it say, Terry? 55% now. So
Because
those
we were up
delayed
from-
vacation time, it
We were
helped
up
us last fiscal year and
70%.
it hurts us this fiscal year.
Right.
So it is an issue. The majority of the scheduled leave that we have upcoming is I would say back to sort of a normal schedule. We have one staff member who will be scheduling quite a bit of leave due to paternity leave that we know we're facing, and we have another staff member who has, I think, another week of vacation this fall, but otherwise we don't have any large blocks of time that staff members have scheduled for leave through the end of the calendar year.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to know what can we expect going forward. Will be a continuation. That's my concern.
So
Well,
what
we
do
do have
for
holidays.
maternity
Huh?
leave here?
We do have holidays,
Holidays coming.
like Thanksgiving
Mhm.
and Christmas.
Those are big ones.
Yeah, October, November, and December are rough months because of the number of holidays that we have in those months. But with regard to paternity leave, he's actually, we do offer FMLA, so job protected leave, but he's taking all of his own accrued annual leave to be able to take the time off to be primary caregiver once his wife goes back to work. So we're not extending anything special per se, other than the fact that given the nature of his leave, we know it's coming and we know why. And I think his plan is actually to work, you know, sort of partial days, and they're working to kind of do it that way, but it's going to be paid leave through his annual leave allocation.
So they're using the
Vacation.
we get personal paid or here like doing counties.
We have sick.
Or the sick leave.
We have sick and vacation separated. So he's taking his accrued leave that he's earned.
So took vacation.
Mhm.
Weren't we talking about changing that over to the,
We're still looking at what scenarios we can bring back to you to make that conversion. We have a very, I'll say, we have a very, very generous leave program here. And so identifying ways to make that transition that are advantageous both to the agency and the staff, I think is possible, but it's a complex thing. So we're working to try to figure out how we can make it work for everybody.
You're looking at PTO then, right?
Right.
You're right, PTO.
A combined, yeah.
What about, any other question? What about special assessments, fiscal year 21, we're $30,000, where are we in special assessments?
Those are collected in full.
Already?
So all of the special assessments that were issued
Mhm.
in fiscal year 19 have all been paid to date. So we had, the city of Richmond paid a lump sum in fiscal year 21. Hanover paid the second payment, and Powhatan made a lump sum payment. So with all the jurisdictions that were assessed paid in full. So everyone participated in that.
Okay.
you're talking about this part-time. I think we discussed at our last meeting too, the question of what kind of loss efficiency we have for this remote work situation. And then when I hear taking FMLA and we're working part-time, a day here, a day there, I'm wondering if it might have been a lot of efficiency lost in that kind of a situation versus, you know, a part-time person versus somebody. If we have a half dozen part-time people working a day here and a day there, would we be better off with 2 full-time people? Who will be continually, I know anytime you're interrupted, if you're
Sure.
working on, you're automatically going to be interrupted every time you turn around. It's a terrible drain on your efficiency.
I think that the individual that's taking the paternity leave is trying to manage being attentive to his work so that he doesn't leave, take leave in a compressed time period for a couple weeks. So he's balancing that, but that's the only staff member that's doing that kind of a schedule shift, and it's for a specific period of time.
Is this a critical staff member that's doing this that,
Yes, I mean, I would say all of our staff members are
I'm-
critical, but yeah, I mean, it's Miles Bushing. I mean, it's a busy time of year for the TPO. So he's been, I think, very conscientious in being mindful of how it affects the upcoming round of funding applications with CMAQ and RSTP. So,
Okay, speaking of part-time, as you just alluded to, we have a part-time regular, part-time regular, then we have full-time regular, sorry. And then part-time temporary 6. Those are the 6, we talked about interns last meeting. So those are delineated as interns.
yes, our part-time temporary staff members are those staff members that we have a expiration date on their employment with us. So it's 2 Wilder Fellows that are paid, 2 Bonner Scholars that are unpaid. They transition from paid internships in the summer to when the school semester started, they are not paid any longer. They get course credit for their time with us. And then we have a 5th person that is a paid intern through the end of October. The 6th that's listed there has already finished their summer internship and isn't on our payroll anymore.
So they're done, the 6th person. Okay. Okay, what's next? Anything else on the financials we need to know about, or anything you want to cover? Anything else on the financial statements? Okay.
I think we're good. We did complete the investment policy,
Okay.
and we ran it by our legal, Eric Gregory.
Mhm.
And we're going to bring that back next month, Martha.
Yeah, I think we'll be ready.
Okay.
I do I do have to raise a question, because I think it's going to be
Yeah.
that we have to answer. We started the fiscal year off in our first 2 months we had losses. All we've done to come up, and even though I know our
Yeah.
balance is there, we cannot continue to, that has to turn into a positive number real quick.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have to be able to address that at the meeting in a couple of weeks, is to how that comes out of parentheses and comes into a positive number, because I don't think we can continue going another month or two having losses every month without having some severe problems. You don't want to get back to where we were,
How do we,
you know,
yeah.
2 years ago, so. I'm not expecting you to give me an answer today, but I do think we need to have a good, solid answer of how we're going to address changing this from losses into, to bring this back up by the time we have our meeting.
And
But 3 or 4 weeks.
why is it happening? You know, is there not enough work going on because everything's shut down, or?
No,
is, you
I
know-
mean, it really is that, as Terry said, it's when I take vacation, because I typically bill to unreimbursable programs, you don't see a dip in the revenue. When a staff member that works in our grant funded programs takes vacation, that time is still being paid, but it's not reimbursable through the grant.
Through the grant.
Okay,
Yeah,
if
so-
that's the case, though, you ought to be able to show that on paper. This is the reason it's down now, and this is how it's going to be fixed, because this is not going to happen next month, because this has already happened here, or somehow.
Understood?
I get that.
But, you know, that just sort of jumps out at me. We've had 2 months into the year, and we've had losses in both months, and the bigger loss being this month.
Understood.
The two.
And is it gonna happen obviously you were implying November and December are gonna be hard too, bad, you know, losses. So that's what I think you get.
I'm not saying, I think it can
No,
be
no.
fixed, but I think we
Yeah.
have to be prepared to speak to it very directly.
Yeah, well,
And I don't feel like we're speaking to it directly today, and I know we were prepared to, but I don't feel like I got a solid answer of why we're coming up with the loss. So.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if we can make it, more definitive
Okay.
reasoning and understanding, because I can't imagine it not coming up.
Yeah, we've declined $20,000 from last month's unreserved balance. 31 to 111, so.
And I think it's, as a finance committee,
We got to be
address that to the full board.
Because it will come up, it should come up.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right, absolutely right. That's why I asked for the rate change and VRS being 21%. That's, we gotta have that data for the committee to meet. And I agree. I think Canovis is right on point. We gotta reverse the trend somehow. And look at other areas we might want to look at, maybe cut. So that's such as that capital item, 20,000 versus 20,000 versus 5,000. And see, we still have to spend all that, we're still declining, so those are things we got to address. And anything else, anything regarding staff positions, anything new on CTA? Anything on that?
Included in the packet on page 16 is a set of 3 position overviews.
Okay, got it.
These are the 3 positions that we have interest in filling at some point over the next year to 2, I'll say. The first one is a top priority, and the executive committee at the September meeting did authorize me to move forward with advertising for the position, but not filling it. That decision would be subject to the full board approval. So it was advertised on our website as of Friday and pushed out through social media as of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday or this morning. That's the extent of the advertising that we've done thus far. But this position is intended to help us with the support that we need for board support to either individually or collectively, some combination of the CBTA, the RRTPO, and PlanRVA and their committees. Counted it up the other day. I think it's something like we're up to with the CBTA and the new committee structure there. We're up to just in those three bodies. I think it's up to anywhere from 10 to 14 meetings a month that require the public notice and the minutes and that. And so trying to be sensitive to the discussion that we had at the last finance committee meeting about the weight of that work on our existing staff, primarily Diane and Nicole, and trying to bring a little bit of relief there, and taking advantage of the potentially new revenue source with the CBTA to help fill that hole. Y'all are probably, I know Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Page are familiar. Nicole has been leading that work for the CBTA, and so at minimum, I'd like to be able to recruit for somebody to come in and help with that element of the workload. It may not be possible to find somebody that could take on the whole of that, because that would essentially be taking what two people are doing and trying to condense it into one person now, but.
So is this a position that Nicole or Diane, is this within their salary range now? Or is this a position that they can apply for, or?
Both are eligible to apply. We notified staff last week of the posting, and if anybody on staff would be interested, who could apply. This position is designed at a higher level classification for both of those positions because it's crafted with the idea of combining all of those. To be candid and talking with both Diane and Nicole, I think both of them are skeptical that a person could take on the range of all of those. So I think it's probably more likely that we have to keep some division of the responsibilities among multiple positions, and that could mean that the pay is not the appropriate for the responsibilities that we'd be looking at. In other words, too high.
When do we anticipate these being budgeted, hitting the budget?
The dollars are in the budget now.
Okay.
They're included in the funding that you see. So we wouldn't be asking for a budget amendment to line 6,000 on page 9.
So how can a new position already be in the budget?
When you approved the budget last June, you approved the budget knowing that these positions were factored in, but the condition of approving the budget was that we wouldn't move to fill them without specific approval from the board. We didn't want to move too hastily given the economic circumstances. And so, frankly, we didn't want to be in a position where we are financially right now, and we were just moving forward with gangbusters because they were budgeted positions.
Yeah, because see, these are budgeted, which means we should be favorable relative to those as costs. We're not seeing the actual cost relative to the budget,
Okay.
Our salaries budget is straight line
budget.
straight line budget.
Okay. And where did you say you saw that? What page was that, Martha? You mentioned 6,000. What was that? On page 9?
Page 10.
Page 10, what line?
Oh, sorry, excuse me, page 9, you were right. Page 9, line 6,000. It's the first
6,000.
expense category under
Okay,
expenses.
6,000. Okay.
So all three of these positions are included in that?
They are.
6,000. Okay.
I mean, it's precisely what you were talking about a moment ago. It's,
that's fine.
making sure that we don't move forward with taking on new positions before we have reversed that trend.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, we're not moving forward and not contemplating. I have 2 grant applications in to help fund positions 2 and 3. So it would actually bring more revenue to the table. But at this point in time, we don't think that we need to recruit for those until calendar 2021 at the earliest. It's that first position that I think we're really seeing the weight.
So you've already started advertising for the position?
The executive committee authorized me to post an opening announcement. And
Right,
we
so
made
it's just
clear in that it's hiring is subject to approval from the board.
And I say that because the hiring, we've talked about hiring people before, but could be done through one of who is handling it?
I drafted the statement in consultation with Terry and Chet and Nicole and Diane.
You know, we talked about before, if you're gonna hire somebody, you can go through one of the counties, their HR department. Is that what you're talking about?
They don't provide hiring services to us. They will help us to review position descriptions and they will help us
Excuse me,
to.
Martha, I just noticed apparently our YouTube is not working, is,
Okay. I saw that
I
was
was
us.
staying that way. I just looked at
I haven't been watching yet, but, okay.
Thanks for noticing that.
Okay,
Well, I've had, but, what are you asking of the committee here?
yeah, if you've already talked to the executive
This
committee.
this is not gonna be done till the first of the year at the earliest.
Position 1 has been advertised. Prior to filling that position, we would need to get board approval. I don't have any applicants yet, so at this point in time, it's just an opening. I think before we would move to request a permission from the full commission, I'd like to get the finance committee to weigh in because of the discussion that you were having on the previous item. So it's, at this point, it's for information. I think we'll want to come back to you when we have, you know, some additional information that you've already identified you'd like to have before it would be fair to ask you for a recommendation.
I'm gonna ask you a question here, because you just said a minute ago, you sounded very unsure about the description of this number 1 recruit. And yet we've already advertised for it, and we're not even sure that one person can do this, or we have to have 2 people doing it. I'm a little concerned that we're recruiting for a position we haven't fully defined. You comfortable with that?
We're just trying to gear up as quickly as we can with the workload with CBTA. I mean, I feel pretty strongly that in order to deliver with the demands that are coming with that, we need additional help. So
I don't doubt that. I'm
I
just
think
concerned
depending
about
on the skill set and the qualifications of candidates, it's possible, I mean, it's intentionally structured to be, you know, dependent upon what that experience is. We have an individual who applies that has, you know, some experience with the number of meetings and local government and that kind of thing. It may not be something that they can handle. If we get somebody who is a seasoned professional in the space that has that experience and can really, you know, grind the work, then that's a different situation. So I think it's very much subject to who applies and if we're able to attract interest from qualified candidates.
Okay, this is one where,
So I don't know if we need a manager for this position.
yeah,
Or,
it's more like a clerk, kind of.
yeah.
I mean, a
But
high-powered,
one
high-powered clerk.
One person can't do it. Surely we can't hire 2 managers to do it. I
Well, it
mean,
says they're responsible, obviously, to the executive director and director of transportation to assume timely and accurate materials that are provided to the members of the bodies, maintain all records of the bodies, and develop a streamlined customer service-based approach to supporting the members of the commission, the CBTA, and the RRTPO. Don't we have people already that are doing this for the commission and the TPO? I mean,
Yes, Ms. Mueller is supporting the TPO
Yeah.
and Diane Fusco is supporting PlanRVA. The thought was, in the spirit of improved customer service, it would be nice to be able to consolidate those so that you are getting the
So
same,
that's the position you're talking about, the number 1?
yes.
that's been advertised.
Okay, well,
yeah.
you said manager for, and you know, you're sitting there talking probably 75,000 a year or something like that, or pay scale. I didn't know whether you were looking, you know, somebody, you know, Chet Parsons, I know, has been doing a lot of the stuff so far with the CBTA.
Before
Of
you
course, they've got some reimbursements, I'm sure, that are already coming due from some of that work.
We do.
But,
So they would be taking off the duties of the secretary of the the PlanRVA and the TPO?
The idea would be able to free Diane from the work that she does for the board, for PlanRVA and the committees, and be able to let her dedicate her time fully to supporting Terry in the financial administration. It would free Nicole from the board support functions that she provides currently to the TPO and its subcommittees, as well as the CBTA. Nicole's the person that's sending the emails on Chet's behalf and doing all the behind the scenes logistics and the minutes writing and all of those things. In order to do that, we thought if we could combine those roles and add the CBTA to it, there would be consistent communication in the way that things get done across the different boards that we support, and that role would be at a pretty high level of responsibility, though, given the range and the number and volume of meetings. The way we have it separated right now is a different model than what we're proposing.
So at the end of the day, we don't want them to have joint jobs, but we're giving this person joint jobs.
Well, I'm sitting here and thinking though that the commission and the CBTA and the TPO are all funded through different streams. Is this person going to be paid for by three different streams of funding?
Yes, the intention would be that they would charge and allocate their time according to in their time card, according to the client, if you will, that they were working to support. So
they get paid by 3 different streams,
which is pretty common in our agency. All of our staff members keep a time record of
but
what
this
they're
is
spending time
this
on.
would be a high-powered clerk, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
like your
very
clerk
much
to
like-
the board, you know,
Yeah,
a
very much
high-powered
so.
clerk. But because
She
you
would
got
let
a
her
lot
make
to
this
do.
stuff.
This is not easy. That was the other thing. I mean, you're the secretary for 3 big organizations,
Yeah.
and you also have to provide all the resolutions or whatever pages. And all.
My only
That's a-
thing is if we have
That's a
people
pretty big
already
job.
that's
Yes,
skilled
That's right.
Yeah,
and
yes.
they don't feel like they can do it by themselves, then how can we hire a person
Well,
that
to
can
do all
of it
3.
by themselves?
We're
Yeah.
hiring somebody to take
Jeez.
the lower level responsibilities that we have for the 2 employees that we have now, and allow them to better utilize their skills at a higher level. Is that correct? Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, I think the higher level and the lower level is arguable, but I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, the intention of what you said is right. We want Diane, who has a financial management background, to be able to focus on financial management and
Okay.
administration.
What is she-
We want
what's her-
Nicole, who has an undergraduate in planning, to be able to utilize her planning degree and be able to pursue that as a professional track, and then hire this. I mean, I think Mrs. O'Bannon is right in saying, I mean, this is intended to be a very high level, high functioning, high performing individual to support those functions of the 3
That's a lot
boards.
of
It may or may
work,
not be.
Yeah, I guess that's the manager title is.
That's why you got manager there
Well,
first.
yeah, but
What's the advertised time for this position you have advertised already? When was it commenced and when does it end?
We posted it on Friday and we do not have a close date.
No close date?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm.
Friday.
Mm.
It's 9/18.
that's a lot of work.
And what's 4/5?
It's more than
What's
one
4/5?
full-time
It
job.
is,
It's like a job
What
and
is
a
that?
half.
yeah.
Depending on the person's experience and skills, it would either be a manager 4 or a manager 5 position.
I got you. Okay, I love it. All right. So this is something we need to contemplate. We're not gonna take an action this today, then, right?
That's right.
And
Okay,
then we
just-
need the salary ranges of the other 2 positions as well.
Well, I'm not sure anybody who takes that first job, I mean, that's more than one full-time job. It's like a job and a half, from what I would understand it to be.
Well, they're not taking everything that Diane and Nicole were doing, they're just taking part of their work.
No, she said so that Diane could go back with Terry.
Doing
So
finance stuff.
it will move her
Yeah, but
totally out of that.
Diane's already working with Terry,
Partially, yeah.
partially.
And she does HR
Nicole's
work.
already working in planning partially. So
Yeah, but, oh geez, that's a big
Well,
job.
that's, I guess we can see who responds
Mm.
and what they're capable of.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at the schedule of meetings from October through December, and it is, on average, a meeting preparation packet distribution each week, as well as a meeting each week. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
which doesn't sound like a lot on, Yeah,
No,
first
I've done
glance,
this kind of
but,
thing
um,
before. That's
the way
a
that
lot of
our
work.
agency is structured, to manage the timelines, to be able to have, you know, the queuing up of agenda items and everything like that. It is, and I think to your point earlier,
Mm.
I don't want to speak for either Nicole or Diane, who have done a remarkable job.
Yeah.
I think that it is challenging to manage the range of responsibilities and be able to keep that sequencing and queuing of work with other interruptions coming in. And I will be honest with you, I don't know if this is the best solution, but it's been something we've been talking about to
Yeah.
see if
Well, it
it's.
sounds like to me you're trying to make better use of the talents we already have
Well, and
than
that's,
than is going on right now by bringing in somebody to assist in the areas.
I'm gonna just,
I don't
if I
know.
read this job and you explain, as I read this job and understanding what each one of these people are gonna have to do, this person is gonna need an assistant.
Mhm.
I'll just put it
There's
that
two
way. I can tell you
positions.
right
Manager
now,
and
they're gonna
assistant.
need somebody to
That's a
help.
good point. Pat. Let's see
I
what
don't
we
think
get
one
downstream.
person can do that whole job.
Mhm.
Because you're responsible for the technicalities of all those resolutions, that come in. And they have to coordinate that with whoever's in charge of some project.
Mhm.
And just taking the minutes of a meeting and typing, getting it straight,
Mhm,
making
right.
sure it's correct and all that.
Mhm.
But this is times 3. I
Reorganization.
know I could do it for one organization, but times 3, it's more than one full-time job from the way I understand what the job will be.
Mhm.
You've got 2 people now kind of splitting this, but you're adding the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, and heaven only knows what's gonna be. I know there's a lot, it's like one more go-round,
Mhm.
and it's $75,000 a year, maybe. I'm not looking for a job, but I was just sitting here
Well,
thinking.
reality is,
Wow.
the PlanRVA is going to be pretty much handling all of the administration for the CBTA, at least through this fiscal year.
At least,
Well,
yes, that's correct.
I don't
Okay,
think there's any way in the world and we can grow
okay.
and get organized well enough not to need assistance with
Well-
the transportation authority.
Obviously, it depends on who applies for it and their understanding of it, the function and all that, but I'm just looking at it if it were me.
Well, then we need to look at the scope of the job.
Yeah,
Well, this
I think
feedback
we'll
is
see where we put it
helpful.
in.
I think it's, to take from the committee meeting last week, it's more important to get it right than to go quickly. So,
Yes.
I think that this conversation has been helpful today. It's what we wanted to be able to hear.
Good.
I know the world feels a little bit upside down right now, but this has been helpful, and we'll have an internal conversation, and perhaps we will pull the position announcement down. It just, I'm feeling some very real urgency.
Well, 2 and 3 have not been advertised.
No,
yeah.
no, we have
I haven't
no,
even read that, but,
As of last Friday.
so
Yeah, I think this
public
across the
engagement,
board,
community
and
services.
also, because when that money starts flowing, it's gonna be a lot of work and a lot of accountability. The money, that's gonna be the biggie. With our organization, you get the RMTA too,
That's
see.
It's probably not that much right now.
not much now, but the RMTA is the part and GRTC. You have a number of players, and then the counties, all the localities are dedicated sources of revenue. And they're looking forward to it, I'm sure. But anyway, there's something we're
Okay.
not gonna discuss. Any other thing else we need to discuss before we adjourn? Our time has come to an end.
Just one item.
One item, please, yes. Mark, budget, yes.
Under the new business,
Okay,
with the advice of our audit firm,
okay,
I had reached out to a software vendor that is used by Hampton Roads PDC
okay.
and also by the PDC that Martha came from
Mhm.
in Northern Shenandoah Valley. And I received a quote, and the highest price for the project is $14,000.
Okay.
The annual ongoing cost would be $3,000. And that would be covered by turning off our payroll service provider, ADP, which is also $3,000 a year. This $3,000 maintenance cost is covered in year 1, but essentially it would allow us to import our timekeeping data into it.
Mhm.
And we'd be able to store the time, any comp time, any excess flex time for our employees, and we could set the amount that they could carry. But we wouldn't be required for, to be allocating all these dollars across journal entries, each month, and it would eliminate error, basically, but it would be very, very efficient. And in terms of when VDOT is charged as the cognizant agency to review our indirect cost or ICAP plan, it's been a real challenge to prove our numbers using QuickBooks. But this would allow for a lot of flexibility for us to post information quickly and accurately. So if you could, consider, either, putting it in the fiscal year 22 budget, or considering possibly transferring some, or putting this as a line item within the capital expense budget, that would be, really appreciated.
Is that a capital expense?
And it's the software, really, you just talking about
Yes.
software, it's no hardware.
No hardware.
And it's
And it's in the
146,000.
cloud.
146,000?
It's $14,000.
Oh, 14,000, I got 14,000.
And that's the highest cost?
That's 14,000. Then the annual is what, 3K?
3,000.
3,000
It's
annual
two
maintenance?
licenses.
Two licenses.
And then maintenance support.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, have you done research on it?
I have.
You gotta make sure you do the research, and, I'll
I've
certainly
been
wanna look
speaking-
at it, if we can create, because you're gonna have more work coming, right?
Well, the
With
way,
more work, means you gotta have more
after
capacity.
talking with
Mhm.
the program manager at GMS, you would call them, you put $2,500 down.
Okay.
And then you could either pay the project, if you pay the $14,000 the first year, you get a 5% discount. If your books are in good shape coming in, which QuickBooks is, then, they would reduce off the 10,000 that they're putting in there for the actual integration time.
Mhm.
So, it could end up coming, back at $12,000. This certainly is 100% locally funded. And, I think, to have the payroll kick off with, W-2s cutting at December 31st, GMS said you'd want to start it now because you need 60 days to build the backbone of the system with the building. So this would be more of the ideal time to do it, to get the payroll started January 1. But right now, we would just give them an Excel file with all of our time cards by work code and hours by employee, and they would just put that in the system.
It sounds to me like this is something that probably ought to have a fairly reasonable payback
Mhm.
before we pay for itself and savings of time.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, what's the ROI on the project?
I haven't priced anything like this.
But it's
lately.
interest-free.
No idea.
And you don't have, if you pay it in the first year, there's a 5% discount.
They said
Yeah.
But it is
Still-
cloud-based.
When I was
Still,
at-
there's gonna be at some point in time, it's gonna be an amount of time
that. Is
it
that a
takes.
reasonable cost?
recoup.
I mean, I have.
I don't spend.
Well, the
I haven't priced
The
anything.
scary,
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't think back
the
on it.
most,
Here's what I want.
I guess the most vulnerable part of QuickBooks is VDOT is not familiar with QuickBooks, and they like the GMS system. And if you have to change, if you get a revision to your indirect cost rate, you have to enter that in the system and have all those changes run through the system, where you can't do that with QuickBooks.
Well, it sounds to
Because
me
we're
like
working
you're
on
gonna
a
save enough
provisional
administrative-
rate.
You're gonna save enough administrative time
Yeah,
to help cover the cost of this. But back to the fact that we've got 2 months of showing losses, I'm gonna have a hard time saying go out and spend this
Spend some money.
unless you can include that in how you bring your package back
Mm.
of how we're gonna turn this thing around and include that in the process.
yeah.
It would be hard to sit here and say, goes, well, we've just
We're
had 2
losing
months of
money.
losses to say,
We're
okay,
losing
we're
money,
gonna
which is a
Right.
hard thing to do and spend more. But what I would do is put together a one-page position paper
Mhm.
on the one-page budget proposal, and then recommendation on the benefits, what we expect to save, quantitatively and maybe qualitatively, and then the time period expected, expenditures outlay of it, what's the cost, 5% here, total cost, 5% savings. Lay out a one-page position paper, and let's look at it. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because it sounds good. But if you do that, I think we have something to work with. Executive committee we need something to work with. And this will help them.
So I think you can make the case. I mean, I don't think it's going to have a problem making. the
No.
case.
But you
I
got,
do have.
but you got to document.
Right.
Yeah,
You got to document. You got to have
that's
documentation.
okay, but I don't know if that's a
Okay,
good cost.
with that thought in mind, is that okay? Is that okay, committee? I think we need to adjourn, because I gotta get going. Got the job to get to. So thank you.
Now,
Are you
so
doing all
the
your
next,
classes virtual
the
now?
next
Yeah,
meeting
all
is
virtual,
Thursday,
100%
October 22nd,
Yeah, two more today.
It's the
We are
27th.
adjourned.
7th.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
27th.
Yeah, let's work.
Keep going on my board days.
Thank you.